On the night I received my parents' inheritance, I thought it would change our lives for the better, but just weeks later the money vanished without a trace. My husband had no answers, until I followed a digital trail that led me overseas. A child's voice on a video call calling him Daddy shattered everything I believed. Who were these people, and why was my inheritance funding their lives? What I uncovered next tore our marriage and his double life wide open. I still remember the day I received the call from the lawyer. My parents' estate had finally been settled, and I was named the sole beneficiary. The inheritance was substantial enough to clear our mortgage invest in a few properties and still have plenty left for our daughter's future. My husband. Ryan acted thrilled when I told him. He hugged me, kissed my forehead, and said, "This is going to make life so much easier, babe. We've earned this." He talked about starting a college fund for our daughter, remodeling the kitchen, maybe even taking a family vacation to Italy, somewhere we'd always dreamed of going. At the time, it all felt so real, so safe. The money hit our joint account the following Monday. I remember staring at the screen in disbelief. Over $600,000. I didn't touch it right away. We needed to sit down and plan. But life got busy. I had a huge campaign launch at work, and Ryan promised he'd take care of handling some transfers and setting up a meeting with a financial advisor. Except that meeting never happened 2 weeks later. I logged into our account one evening just to check on things and nearly fell out of my chair. Only $30,000 was left. My heart dropped. I refreshed the page again and again, convinced it was a glitch. It wasn't. The transaction history showed multiple, large wire transfers. 50 semis in here, 71 there, sent to international accounts I didn't recognize. The recipient names were vague, listed under generic account codes from a European bank. I rushed into the living room where Ryan was watching a documentary. "Legs up like it was just another Tuesday?" "Ryan," I said, trying to steady my voice. "What happened to the money?" He blinked at me, like he didn't understand the question. "The inheritance. It's almost all gone." He paused. "The TV what?" "No, that can't be right. Maybe it's just pending. It's not pending. It's gone." "You said you'd wait before doing anything." Ryan rubbed his temple, suddenly looking annoyed. "Okay, calm down. I had to move some of it around international investments, safer holdings. You wouldn't understand the financial stuff, babe. I was protecting it. From who I wanted to believe him. I really did. But something about his tone, the way he dismissed me like a child, sent chills down my spine. I asked for the financial advisor's number. He said he lost it. I asked for the names of the investments. He changed the subject. That night when he fell asleep, I stayed up digging. I cross-checked every account that received funds. One caught my eye. It had the same last name as Ryan's. Curious. I looked deeper and found a trail connecting that account to a woman in France. Her name was Camille. She didn't just share Ryan's last name. She also had a child, a boy, about 5 years old. I couldn't breathe. The next day, I played it cool. I acted like I believed the investment story. Meanwhile, I started pulling financial statements, messages, even checking his cloud backups. And then it happened. 3 days later, Ryan left his phone on the table during breakfast. A FaceTime call came through with the name Camille. I froze. The screen lit up, showing a pretty woman with soft brown hair and a boy sitting on her lap. "Say hi to Daddy," she said cheerfully. My blood ran cold. Hi, Daddy. The little boy beamed, waving at the camera. Before I could process what I was seeing, Ryan grabbed the phone, ending the call in a flash. He stared at me. I stared back. There were no more lies to tell. You have a son, I whispered, barely able to get the words out. Ryan's shoulders slumped, and for the first time since I'd known him, he looked defeated. It's not what you think, he said. But of course it was exactly what I thought. He had another family, and my parents' money was funding their life abroad. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Something inside me shut off. I walked upstairs, locked the bedroom door, and started documenting everything. Every transaction. Every message. Every call log. I could recover. He thought I'd fall apart. But I was just getting started. The rest of that day passed in a fog. I barely spoke to Ryan. He hovered near the bedroom door a few times, probably debating whether to explain himself again. But he didn't. Maybe even he knew there were no words to fix what he'd done. By nightfall, I had printed copies of every transfer he made with my inheritance. I had names, dates, bank accounts, and even screenshots of his video. Call history. I felt like a detective in my own life, piecing together a betrayal so large, so cruel, it didn't seem real. The next morning I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. A divorce and asset protection specialist. Her name was Clarissa, and the moment I explained my situation, she didn't hesitate. You're going to need to move fast, she said. Do not confront him again. Do not tip him off that you're pursuing legal action. Let me file first. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. My stomach twisted. I wasn't just ending a marriage, I was preparing for war. Over the next few days, I went through Ryan's files with quiet fury. He never password protected his laptop. He thought I was too technically challenged to snoop. He underestimated me. That's how I found everything. Emails with Camille, dating back 6 years. Photos of them on vacation in Spain. A birth certificate for his son, Ryan Jr. He named the boy after himself. And worst of all, one email dated just 1 month before my parents died. He wrote, "Once she gets the inheritance, I'll transfer the money to the French account. Then we're set, just be patient." He planned it. He knew what he was doing. All those times he rubbed my back, told me he loved me, promised a brighter future. He was lying, smiling in my face while preparing to steal everything my parents worked for. That Sunday, I pretended like nothing was wrong. We went out for brunch. I smiled when the waitress took our picture. I even held his hand across the table. Because I had already filed the divorce petition on Friday, Clarissa advised me to act normal. While the paperwork processed and the court froze our joint assets, she didn't want him moving what little money was left. The legal system worked faster when deception was involved. She said I played the part of the doting wife, while quietly dismantling our life behind his back, just like he'd done to me. On Monday morning, the papers were served. Ryan was getting ready for work, sipping coffee at the kitchen island, when the doorbell rang. I didn't move. I just watched him from the hallway. He opened the door and froze. The process server handed him the envelope with a polite nod. I'll never forget his face. Confused at first, then pale, then angry. He stormed into the living room. Papers crumpled in his fist. "You're divorcing me." "Yes," I said calmly, "and suing you for misappropriation of marital funds. You used my inheritance to support your second family. You left a paper trail." His mouth opened and closed like he didn't know where to start. "You went through my files," he finally said. I let out a short, bitter laugh. "That's what you're upset about. Not the fact that you have a child with another woman. Not that you used money. My parents left me to fund their life overseas." He didn't answer. He had no defense. He left the house that night and moved in with a friend. Or maybe he went straight to Camille. I didn't care. Clarissa assured me that legally, the inheritance was mine alone. It wasn't considered joint marital property, and since he moved the money without my consent, it qualified as fraud. The court froze every account in Ryan's name. We requested a financial audit, and the judge granted an injunction that stopped him from accessing international funds until the case was settled. But I wasn't done. One afternoon, while gathering more evidence with Clarissa's help, we discovered that Ryan hadn't just sent money overseas. He'd opened a fake business under Camille's name and funneled over 100,000 into it to avoid detection. We handed everything over to the authorities. Fraud, financial misconduct, international tax evasion. Ryan wasn't just a cheating husband. He was a criminal. The legal process dragged on for months, but the outcome was worth it. The court granted me full control over the remaining inheritance-exclusive ownership of our home, and primary custody of our daughter, Ryan, was ordered to pay restitution for the money he siphoned, and he was barred from opening new international accounts for 5 years. I never saw Camille or the boy again. Ryan tried to play the victim online, posted cryptic statuses about being betrayed by the people closest to him. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. My silence said everything. A few months after the divorce was finalized, I stood in the new kitchen I'd remodeled using my money and watched our daughter play in the backyard. She was happier now, I was too. It took everything in me not to fall apart when I learned the truth, but instead, I rose. I protected what mattered. And now, for the first time in years, I finally felt free. 6 months after the divorce, life finally started to feel quiet, too. Quiet, maybe. I had settled into a new routine with my daughter Ava. We cooked together on weekends, had movie nights on Fridays, and every Sunday morning we biked through the park, just the two of us. I finally had control over my life again. No more lies. No more secrets. Or so I thought. One morning, as I was reviewing a few remaining documents with Clarissa, to wrap up the financial case, she frowned and tapped her pen on one of the forms. "Do you recognize this account number?" she asked, sliding the page toward me. I squinted. It looked familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. "It's registered to someone named Anna J. Langley." "Do you know her?" I froze. My mother's maiden name was Langley, and Anna, that was her middle name. My heart pounded. That's odd. That name hasn't been used in decades. Why Clarissa turned her laptop toward me and opened a spreadsheet she had pulled from the court's subpoenaed bank records. "This account received 3 deposits from your joint account. About 45,000 total just before Ryan began transferring the rest of the money abroad." I stared at the screen. So, Ryan didn't just send the money to France. He also sent some here. Clarissa nodded. "We missed it at first, because it was under a different name. But I had our forensic accountant do another sweep. When I noticed the discrepancy, I didn't know what to think. Why would Ryan send part of the inheritance to an account under a variation of my mother's name? Was he trying to hide it from Camille? Or was there someone else? Clarissa leaned forward. "I can look into this more, but you might want to prepare yourself. If this account is domestic and connected to your family, we need to know who has access to it and why. That night, I dug through my parents' old files. My mother passed away 2 years ago, and my father a year before that. I remembered them both as generous, trusting people. They always believed in second chances. Maybe too much. At the very back of a dusty filing cabinet, I found something odd. A letter. Unopened. Addressed to me, but never mailed. The handwriting was unmistakable. My mother's. I tore it open and began reading. My dearest Ellie, if you're reading this, it means things have gone very wrong. There's something we never told you because we hoped you'd never need to know. But we made arrangements years ago, in case Ryan ever changed. My breath caught in my throat. We saw things in him you didn't. The charm, the way he calculated his words. We didn't want to interfere with your marriage, but we created a backup account in my name, Anna Langley, as a safety net. Just in case you ever needed to protect yourself. We put aside some of the inheritance, not in the trust, but separately where only you or someone you trust could access it. If you're in trouble, check this account. At the bottom of the letter was a small key taped to the paper and a handwritten bank name. My fingers shook as I drove across town the next morning to the credit union listed in the letter. I brought the letter, the key, and my ID. After some verification, the bank manager brought out a safety deposit box and handed me a small packet. Inside was a checkbook account, statements and over $60,000 in untouched funds, along with a note from my father: if Ryan ever betrays you, this is yours. No one else can touch it. Use it to rebuild. I cried in the parking lot for 10 straight minutes. My parents had seen through him before I ever could. They tried to protect me without humiliating me, and somehow, even from the grave, they had saved me again. When I told Clarissa about the hidden account, she smiled and said, "Your parents were very smart. It's completely legal outside the marital estate. This money is clean." It felt like a second chance, not just financially, but emotionally, a way to finally reclaim my identity without Ryan's shadow looming over me. But just when I thought the past was behind me, it knocked on my front door, literally. One evening, Ava and I had just finished dinner when someone rang the bell. I opened the door and froze. It was Camille. She looked exhausted. Her eyes were puffy, her hair pulled into a messy bun, held the hand of a little boy, Ryan Jr. "Please," she said softly. "I need to talk to you." Every cell in my body screamed to slam the door, but then I looked down at the boy. He looked scared, confused. I stepped aside and let her in. We sat across from each other in the living room. Ava stayed upstairs, thankfully. Camille's voice trembled. "I didn't know about you until after I got pregnant. Ryan told me you two were separated, that the marriage was over." I clenched my fists but said nothing. When I found out the truth, I confronted him. He promised me everything would work out. Then he disappeared. He hasn't sent money in weeks. I'm stuck here. He drained my accounts too. I had to fly here with the last of my savings, because I didn't know where else to go. I stared at her in disbelief. "You think I owe you something?" She shook her head quickly. "No, I'm not asking for money. I wanted you to know I didn't scheme with him. I was used. Just like you. I didn't respond right away. I wasn't sure." I believed her, but I also wasn't sure I didn't. Then, as if reading my mind, she pulled a USB drive from her purse. I have everything. His emails, his fake identities, proof that he planned this long before either of us knew. I want him to pay for what he did, not just to you, to both of us. I took the USB with a steady hand. I don't forgive you, I said flatly. But I believe you. She nodded. That's fair. As she left, I watched little Ryan Jr. turn and wave goodbye. For a moment I saw Ava in his eyes. Innocent, unknowing. A victim just like the rest of us. I didn't know what I'd do with the files yet. But one thing was certain. Ryan had spent years building lies. Now the truth gave a bit to your head. I didn't sleep the night Camille showed up. After she left, I stayed up watching the blinking cursor on my laptop screen. The USB drive plugged in, untouched. I didn't know what I was waiting for. Maybe I needed to brace myself, because whatever was on that drive, I knew it would change everything. When I finally opened the first folder, I was shocked, not just by the number of files, but by their content. Ryan hadn't just lied. He had lived a double life meticulously built over years. He had dozens of aliases registered to fake companies, offshore accounts spread across 4 countries. And worst of all, he had taken money not just from me, but from other women too. There were emails, conversations, love letters, digital receipts, screenshots of him promising homes, marriages, futures. He was a serial manipulator, a financial predator. And now I had the smoking gun. The next morning I called Clarissa. She was quiet as I explained everything, then said in a low, calm voice, "Ellie, this is bigger than a divorce case. This is federal fraud, identity theft, and international money laundering." My hands went cold. "I think it's time we speak to the authorities," she continued. By noon, we were in a meeting with an investigator from the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, and a federal prosecutor. Clarissa had already prepared a summary packet. The agent's eyes widened as he scrolled through the files Camille had given me. "This is extensive," he muttered. The federal prosecutor added, "If even half of this checks out, your ex-husband could be facing 20 years minimum." That's when it hit me. Ryan wasn't just going to lose in court. He was going to lose everything. That night I finally allowed myself to feel something close to relief. But it was mixed with a heavy sadness. He was the man I once loved. The man I married. The father of my child. And yet, he had chosen this path. A week later, federal agents issued a sealed indictment. Ryan had no idea what was coming, until the morning he was arrested at the airport. Apparently, he had booked a one-way ticket to the Cayman Islands under the name Joseph Clark. He was trying to disappear before anyone could stop him. Too late. They caught him at the gate, right before boarding. He was charged with wire fraud, bank fraud, identity theft, and international financial crimes. When the story broke in the media, headlines exploded. "Man arrested for stealing wife's inheritance. Running financial scam across borders." Neighbors were stunned. People at his old job were shocked. But me, I felt vindicated. He pleaded not guilty. Of course, his lawyer argued he was emotionally distressed and financially desperate. But the evidence was too damning. Especially once Camille and 2 other women. Yes, 2 more agreed to testify. I sat in the courtroom during the first pretrial hearing. Ryan wouldn't look at me. His hands were cuffed, his hair disheveled, his expensive lawyer whispering frantically beside him. He looked nothing like the charming, confident man who once stood in our kitchen pouring me coffee. Like nothing was wrong. His bail was denied. He was considered a flight risk outside the courthouse. Reporters swarmed me. I gave a single statement. He didn't just steal money, he stole trust, futures, and families, but we're taking that back now. That night, after I put Ava to bed, I sat alone in the living room and replayed the last year of my life, like a film reel. My parents' death, the inheritance, the betrayal, the hidden family, the trial. And I realized something I had survived, every piece of it. A few weeks later, Camille emailed me. She had found a part-time job in the city and moved into a small apartment. She thanked me again. Not for the money, but for listening, for not slamming the door. We weren't friends, but we weren't enemies anymore either. Sometimes survival creates strange alliances. The trial began 4 months later. The courtroom was packed. Ryan looked thinner, paler, but the jury didn't need long. After 7 days of testimony and only 4 hours of deliberation, they returned with a unanimous verdict. Guilty on all charges. He was sentenced to 27 years in federal prison, with no possibility of parole. For at least 18. The judge called him a manipulator of the worst kind. One who weaponized love for financial gain. As the gavel dropped, I felt an invisible weight lift off my chest. It was over. Or at least, the worst part was, in the months that followed, I rebuilt everything. I used the untouched backup inheritance my parents had left to start a nonprofit, a small foundation that offers financial literacy and legal aid to women leaving abusive or deceptive relationships. I named it after my mother, the Anna Langley Trust. It felt like justice, not just in court, but in life. One day, Ava asked Mom, "Why don't we see Dad anymore?" I took a deep breath and sat down beside her because Dad made some choices that hurt people. And when people break really big rules, they have to take responsibility for it. She nodded slowly. "Is he in timeout?" I smiled sadly. A very long one. "Yes." She thought for a second, then said, "I like our life now. It feels peaceful." And it did. No more lies. No more secrets. Just the truth and the strength that came from surviving it. One quiet Sunday morning, almost a year after the trial, I received a letter in the mail. It had no return address. The envelope was plain, the handwriting familiar in the worst possible way. Ryan, I held it for a long time, unsure whether to open it or throw it straight into the fire pit on the patio. But something in me, the part that needed finality, decided to read. It was short, neatly written, no rambling, no excuses. "Ellie, there's no apology. Strong enough for what I've done. Not just to you, but to our daughter and to myself. I destroyed everything that ever mattered because I couldn't stop lying. Not even to myself. I know now that I was never worthy of the love you gave me. I thought I was smarter than everyone else. But the truth is, I was just afraid. Afraid of being ordinary. Afraid of not being enough. But in trying to escape those fears, I became something much worse. I don't expect you to forgive me. I wouldn't if I were you. But I needed you to know I've been reading every book I can in here. About truth, about redemption, about how to live with the wreckage we leave behind. They say prison changes people. I don't know if that's true, but I know that you changed me because you were the only person who ever looked at me like I was worth saving, and I wasted it. I hope someday Ava can know the truth, when you think she's ready, and I hope she knows this isn't her fault. None of it was. Please, take care of her, and yourself. You always deserved better, Ryan. I sat in silence after reading it. No tears. Just an odd, hollow stillness. It wasn't a plea. It wasn't even redemption. It was acknowledgement. And for the first time I realized something I didn't need. His apology. I had already built my life beyond him, in the year since the trial. The Anna Langley Trust had grown faster than I imagined. We started with one lawyer and one part-time counselor. Now we had a full team supporting dozens of women every month. Some were escaping abusive partners. Some were victims of financial deceit, like I had been. All of them were searching for a second chance. One of our clients, Maria, had fled with 2 kids in the middle of the night after her husband drained her savings. She walked into our center with nothing but a duffel bag and fear in her eyes. 3 months later, she was working at a local bakery, renting her own apartment, and volunteering at the trust on weekends. Watching her transformation reminded me of my own pain. It might leave scars, but it also forges resilience. One afternoon, as I was leaving the office, Camille called. We hadn't spoken in months, but her voice was steady, stronger. I just wanted to say thank you, she said. For what I asked, for not turning me away that night, for believing me. You didn't have to, and I know I was part of the damage, even if I didn't mean to be. I paused, then said, You were a victim too. He made sure of that. She exhaled slowly. Anyway, Ryan sent me a letter too. I was surprised. Did you read it? I did. It didn't change anything, but it helped. In a weird way. There was a pause. Ryan Jr. started school, she added quietly. He's doing well. He's in art club. Loves drawing. I smiled. Ava's the same. She's really into books now. All she wants are mystery stories. Camille laughed gently. Guess they both inherited a taste for drama. We said goodbye shortly after that. No promises to meet up. Just mutual understanding closure. A few weeks later, Ava came home from school with a drawing. It was of our house. The 2 of us standing in front hand in hand. The sun was shining, flowers blooming, and on the porch was our dog, Rusty, barking happily. She'd written 3 words in the corner. Me and Mom. I hugged her tightly. Mom? She asked suddenly. Will Dad ever come back? I didn't flinch this time. Maybe one day, I said, but not soon. And not in the same way. Is he bad? She whispered. I knelt down and looked her in the eyes. He made bad choices. But that doesn't mean you are bad. You're good. You're strong. And you're so loved. She nodded slowly, then skipped off to feed Rusty. Later that night I stood on the back porch watching the stars. I thought about all the versions of myself I'd had to become. The grieving daughter, the betrayed wife, the single mother, the survivor, the advocate. Every one of them was still inside me, but I was no longer defined by any of them. I was something more. Free. 6 months later, I gave a TEDx talk titled Rebuilding After the Unthinkable: The Power of Financial Truth. It went viral. Thousands of women reached out, and for the first time, I understood why all of this had happened, not because I deserved it, but because someone needed to speak out to show others that you can lose everything and still rise, not in spite of the fall, but because of it. It's funny how life feels heavier when you're surviving it, and lighter when you finally start living it. 2 years have passed since Ryan's arrest. The world has kept spinning, but my world, the one I rebuilt from the ruins, has finally found its rhythm. Ava just turned 8. She asked for a mystery-themed birthday party, complete with clues hidden around the house, and a magnifying glass-shaped cake. Watching her laugh with her friends, I couldn't help but feel overwhelmed with gratitude, not because everything is perfect, but because it's honest, it's real. No more secrets. At the party, a woman approached me, quiet, hesitant. "You're Ellie Langley." "Right," she asked. "From the Trust." I nodded, her eyes filled with tears. "You saved my life. You don't know me. But your story helped me leave. I thought I was crazy. I thought no one would believe me. But then I saw your interview, and I realized I wasn't alone." I hugged her without a word. No one should have to fight those battles. Alone, I started the Anna Langley Trust to honor my mother. But in doing so, I've discovered a deeper purpose, empowering women to reclaim what was stolen from them: dignity, agency, safety. I've spoken at universities, been interviewed by financial publications, even met lawmakers interested in developing policies around financial abuse. But none of it compares to the quiet moments, like reading bedtime stories with Ava, or sipping tea on my porch, or waking up with peace in my chest instead of panic. And sometimes in that quiet, I think about Ryan. He's still in prison. He sends Ava cards on her birthday and holidays. I read them first, then give her the ones I feel are appropriate. She's not ready to write back. Maybe she never will. That choice will always be hers. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's choosing to move forward without carrying someone else's shame on your back. Do I forgive Ryan? Not completely, maybe never. But I no longer wake up angry. And that's enough. People ask me sometimes if I ever regret marrying him, if I regret trusting him. The truth is, I don't. Because from that pain came a version of me I never would have met otherwise. A woman who fought back, who spoke up, who refused to be erased. Pain didn't destroy me. It introduced me to myself. Now every time I walk into the center, every time I answer a call from a woman whispering, "I don't know where to start," I tell her what I've learned. You already started by surviving. The rest we do together. That's my legacy now. Not what he took, but what I chose to build.